Welcome to Survivor South Africa, the Presidency edition. Now, we have recently seen a flurry of news reports almost incessantly, almost every day, outlining failings and dealings and questionable this and dodgy that to do with our Deputy President Paul Mashatile. And you've got to start asking yourself the question, what is going on here? Well, I believe that what we are seeing is the start of the ANC's elective conference. We are seeing something that roughly what we've seen before. It's almost Polokwane 2.0. Let me first run you through some of the things that we've seen coming out on Paul Mashatile just in the last couple of months. Now, as we know, Paul Mashatile comes into his position as Deputy President, having been head of the ANC in Gauteng, held a few minor cabinet ministerial positions where he didn't exactly, arts and culture and stuff like that, where, they hid him away from the hard stuff because I don't think the guy's very good. But he came along with a constituency and here in Gauteng, and he became Deputy President. But then recently, we've seen a flurry of news reports. Now, let's start, before we get to those actual reports, understand that the ANC is very, very good at putting a big muzzle on bad information, right? If you look at, for example, the Thembi Simelane affair, where the Minister of Housing got a loan that's extremely dodgy, it's been quite hard to get the information out of that as to what happened. But with Mashatile, the information flows like a sewer. So much so that you would imagine that the information's coming from the inside. Because every time something comes out, boy, the whole story is leaked in no time. So what have we seen? Well, we remember about this time last year where video emerged of Mashatile's henchmen beating up motorists on the side of the highway. Right? Camera footage from somebody who saw this taking place, took the footage, and it became a little bit of a storm for a while. And the big question started to become, how much did Paul Mashatile know? This was apparently his protectors that had beaten up motorists. Was Paul Mashatile there? And immediately he said, no, he was nowhere near that. Suddenly the information came out. Paul Mashatile was in fact in the car, did nothing about it, let his guys beat up innocent motorists. Now, that information in the old ANC would definitely not have emerged. But anyway, move on to the next scandal. There was a question about whether he had survived an assassination attempt, whether people had actually shot at his vehicle. Mashatile once again immediately said, I don't know what you're talking about. Until information came out that he did know what was being spoken about. In actual fact, had been part of questioning as to whether somebody had taken shots at the vehicle. He gave a garbled response. Basically, we still don't know. I don't know. I follow these things all the time. And maybe somebody shot at his car. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But the point is that he had denied that there was anything, and then he had to admit that he was. And then we get into his more corrupt activities. And some of them are whoppers. Now, understand that the Mashatile family is the best business family in the history of the world. They have started businesses and within no time have become mega rich. Now, anybody that's run a business understands that it very seldom works that way. Often you need to build up a business over time and have a track record of delivery, but not in the Mashatile household. Apparently, all you just have to do is just say, me, sir, and you get given contracts worth more money than what either you or I can understand. They will solve the unemployment and poverty crisis in South Africa just by sheer weight of their entrepreneurial ability. This is one talented family, and it doesn't just extend to his own family, it's anyone that has to do with him. So let's talk about his sister-in-law, his wife's twin sister, who within days of registering a company becomes part of the winning consortium to run the national lottery. Yes, the company was days old. What her credentials are, other than being the Deputy President's sister-in-law, one doesn't understand, but maybe she's some kind of business genius, maybe she just understands lottery better than anybody else, maybe she's a systems fundi, who knows, but question marks as to how the Deputy President's sister-in-law becomes part of a winning consortium that gets to manage the national lottery. Next one. There's been this ongoing question as to where Deputy President Paul Mashatile lives. Now, not for him is the old 3-bedroom house or the parliamentary village. No, no. When he's up at the Union Buildings in Gauteng, he lives in a 38 million rand mansion in Waterfall City. That, I suppose, depends which day of the week you ask, either belongs to his son or his son-in-law, he doesn't own it, he just gets to use the place. Interesting that somebody could afford to spend 38 million rand on a house and then not live in it, which means that you've probably got a 40 million rand house down the road. As I said, the Mashatiles are going to solve our economic crisis by themselves. So there was a question mark around that house. And then there's a question mark about where he stays when he's down in Parliament in Cape Town. Well, as I said, not going to stay in the parliamentary village. In fact, he stays in a 27 million rand mansion in Constantia in Cape Town, which he once again assured us doesn't belong to him, belongs to his son or son-in-law. They seem to be interchangeable. But then recently, he declared that, oh wait, I do own the house in Cape Town. I don't know if it slipped his mind for a couple of years, and now suddenly he remembered. But hey, a deputy president in South Africa earns 3 million rand a year. Now, I'm not sure which financial institution he deals with, or maybe he's just very good at playing the lottery because maybe he's got some inside information as to the numbers that are going to win the lottery. The point is, it's a lot of money for a guy who's been a lifetime politician. Maybe he works at night as a DJ. Ooh, that's a bit of a dangerous job in South Africa. But anyway, the guy's very good at money. And turns out he says recently that he owns this house in Cape Town. And now we hear that he's been fined by Parliament. Got to love our Parliament. We hold people to account. He's been fined a whopping 10,000 rand for not declaring that his wife received a ring from the alleged fraudster Louis Liebenberg, the guy who's bankrolling Jacob Zuma's MK party. And he didn't declare this, and he said the reason he didn't declare this because it hadn't been valued yet, so he didn't know what to put on his declaration. So he's paying the 10,000 with great humility and sadness. And I'm sure it's going to make a massive dent in his own personal balance sheet. So the interesting thing is that he's not the only flawed character in the ANC. We know that. I mean, I think one of us could do a lifestyle audit and ask serious questions of many of our politicians. That's not the interesting bit. All of these little salacious details are details. Right? The same would apply with everybody. I mean, we're still trying to work out how money ends up in the president's couch, but that's a separate issue. But the point is, how has the party allowed this information to emerge unless they want the information to emerge? And this is where the Survivor South Africa edition starts. Let's not make the mistake of thinking that Cyril Ramaphosa is in fact Cupcake. He's just some dullard that sits on a couch stuffed full of money that never makes a decision. No, this man knows how to play the game. He is the ultimate survivor. And he is far smarter than his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. We all talk about this grandmaster chess player. Well, everybody seems to forget that the grandmaster chess player was outplayed by our Cyril Ramaphosa. He is a real operator. And sticking with Survivor, let's just look at this. He outwitted Jacob Zuma in 2017 when Jacob Zuma wanted to have his proxy, also his wife, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, elected as president. And Cyril Ramaphosa managed to get David Mabuza at the time to flip, to switch his vote and vote for him, and Cyril Ramaphosa became president. He also got Mabuza to resign. So, he played both sides. He outplayed them both. He outlasted John Steenhuisen as well as all the other GNU partners by saying, vote for me as president, because the ANC didn't get a majority, and I promise you I'll do good by you. And then proceeded to not do good by them. He broke the agreement, as we all know. Appointed his own people to the cabinet positions he wanted, gave a few, token positions to the opposition parties where they couldn't do too much damage, couldn't get too close to the money. And despite all the complaints and that, he outlasted them. Complain away. The man has got a skin of one of his buffaloes. He has got the ability to absorb an enormous amount of insults without really losing his smile or his composure. So he outlasted John Steenhuisen and the other GNU partners. And then he outplayed Paul Mashatile right now. Because what does Paul Mashatile want right now is he wants to do what Jacob Zuma did in 2005, when then President Thabo Mbeki fired him, right? Because he was this flawed individual with a real question mark around corruption and that. Cyril has learned by that, and now he's outplayed him. He won't fire the guy. He wants him to stay in Parliament. He wants him to have to declare these declarations. And Mashatile is not smart enough to hide it. The truth is coming out. He can't hide it. He also can't go and lobby a constituency, largely because he doesn't have a constituency. Who is Paul Mashatile's constituency? Well, we know he comes from Gauteng, whereas Alex Mafia, the so-called Alex Mafia that he was part of it, propelled him to higher office. But where are the Alex Mafia now? They're all being investigated by hawks that seem to just spend the day playing solitaire on their computers, suddenly arresting a whole bunch of people, kingpins of crime and backers of Paul Mashatile here in Gauteng. And this is going to rob Mashatile of the most important thing, and that is money. He could make up for the money if he had a genuine constituency here. But remember that in Gauteng, the ANC is run by that blowhard Panyaza Lesufi. And what did he do in the last election? Well, he lost 16% of his support, went all the way down to 34%. So there's no real constituency for Mashatile to lobby, to do as Jacob Zuma did in the build-up to 2007 when he went to KZN, rallied the troops, got everybody to vote for him. Mashatile is too busy fighting off these charges in Parliament to try and go and get people to support him. What could Mashatile's strategy be? Well, his strategy was seemingly to be the guy who wanted the GNU not to work. And he was the guy who was anti-GNU. Well, every day the GNU doesn't collapse, it makes Mashatile look less powerful. What does the president do? He puts him in charge of certain GNU functions. So by day, the guy has to support the GNU, whereas he would love to lobby on an anti-GNU ticket. He would love to be outside of government. Fire him now so that he can say, you see me, I'm the victim, and it's the GNU. So he is being outplayed tremendously. So you may well ask, if all of this is happening, to what end? Cyril Ramaphosa is in his second and last term, but what happens now? Well, in my opinion, Cyril Ramaphosa gets to anoint his successor. Basically, anyone that stands against Mashatile is going to romp home in the ANC elective conference. And my money still sits with Patrice Motsepe, for the simple reason. It's Cyril Ramaphosa's brother-in-law. They keep it in the family. Well-known history of, family-run countries. Happens in the DRC. Happens in many other countries. It happened in Angola. South Africa would just be joining the trend. Now, Patrice Motsepe, we know, is independently wealthy. A presidency is something that money can't buy. I know I say that, but money can buy elections, but you get what I mean. It's not something that you can just sort of do a hostile takeover of. Right? He gets to put on his CV that he was president. He gets a street named after him. And if he does a decent job, he gets a town named after him, a couple of schools. These are sort of vanity projects that propel people like, say, Donald Trump to stand for president. Why would he do it? He's got enough money, supermodel for a wife. What more do you need? Well, it's that legacy that you're after. Maybe get your face carved into Table Mountain. So I believe that what we are seeing at the moment is Survivor South Africa. There is, however, one little miscalculation that perhaps is not being taken into account. And that is that all of these shenanigans, all of these games, there's one factor that the whole ANC is forgetting. And that is ultimately, on election day, in 2029, the South African voter will get to decide whether they want to have another go, another round with the ANC. And all of this game playing may be very distracting in terms of getting people to vote for the ANC. So as much as this is very smart politicking and game playing, I do think that the danger here is that the party becomes so far removed from the voters, which they have already, that their 40% turns into 30% or 20%. And they don't even form part of the next government, let alone become president. But if the ANC should rally, and if the elective conference should matter, Paul Mashatile is being played out of the game, and the poor guy doesn't even know it. Thank you so much for joining me today on the weekly update. Please support our sponsors, Pace Car Rental. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.